Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I will be giving you a breakdown on the upcoming Marvel crossover event, Gang War. Now, Gang War originally came out in 1986. It was 5 parts, but Zeb Wells decided he wanted to take a 5-part series and turn it into something that spans over 5 months. You would have thought Zeb Wells learned his lesson last time with the Dark Web that major crossovers like that typically suck, and not everyone is going to go buy all the comics they need to read to understand the story, because no one wants to buy that many comic books, especially with characters that they don't normally read. For example, I don't want to read about Spider-Woman for this crossover event. I've never read Luke Cage before. How am I supposed to keep up with this story? And that's just one of my complaints about it, but I'm going to try to be excited because there's a lot to break down here. I don't have a huge problem with Zeb Wells like most people do. I just hate the Dark Web and the fact that we had a character death build up for a freaking year, and it turned out to be Miss Marvel when they advertised it as a major Spider-Man character death, and it was Miss Marvel. Those have been my biggest concerns or problems with Zeb Wells. I personally don't hate the current art. I think what they're doing right now is actually pretty cool. Let's talk about the Gang War crossover, because this could very well be Zeb Wells' last chance to impress the fans of Spider-Man comic books. So it'll be mostly street level, white collar crime villains, which I love it when Spider-Man is fighting those guys. I love it when he's doing a type of little detective thing and has to do some extra digging around. I love that side of Spider-Man. It's my favorite part of Spider-Man, and I'm super excited about this. Not only is he fighting crime lords, but crime lords are fighting other crime lords, and Luke Cage as the mayor of New York City and his anti-vigilante law. That going against Spider-Man and the other heroes in here, and having to see Spider-Man fight the law and the criminals that the law should be fighting, I love that when Spider-Man gets in situations like that. It's one of my favorite things about Spider-Man, and it's got me super hyped up for this crossover event because I think it's going to be really good. Of course, I said that about the Dark Web too. Go back and watch any of my updates on that, or my breakdown on that, or any of the shorts I made about the Dark Web, and you'll hear me say, I think this is going to be awesome. And it wasn't. The story seems to be set up pretty well so far. We're going to talk about everything you need to know. I kind of see this with the villains playing out similar to how it did in Spectacular Spider-Man when Doc Ock and Silvermane and Tombstone and even Hammerhead were all trying to get control of New York City, and there was a literal gang war that broke out. And obviously it's not going to be exactly like that. Probably won't even be too close, but that's kind of the vibe I'm picking up when I think about this crossover event, and it's got me really excited. As for the heroes, obviously we have Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Daredevil, but the Electro Daredevil, which I actually really like. I think it's a really cool character. I think I said Miles Morales already, but Miles Morales, Shang-Chi, who might not be a hero, we'll see, and then She-Hulk, of course. I think She-Hulk's going to play a pretty cool part in this. More about that when we get to it. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be very good, and I'm very excited for it. But first thing you need to know about are the crime families that will probably be taking part in the Gang War. First off, the Maggia, originally debuted in 1963. They will play some roles in this crossover event. In the Amazing Spider-Man 31, which I will go back to multiple times in this video, one of the prominent leaders of the Maggia, Madame Mask, was killed in a car bomb set there by rival boss Hammerhead. A lot of things happened in Amazing Spider-Man 31 when Randy Robertson, Robbie Robertson's son, and Janice Lincoln, aka the Beetle, and also Tombstone's daughter, were supposed to get married. Like I said, we're going to talk about this issue a lot more because it has a lot to do with this upcoming crossover event. You also need to know about the Five Weapons Society. So, originally it was a society to protect China, and it turned into a criminal enterprise thanks to Shang-Chi's father. He defeated his father and reestablished the Five Weapons Society in in Chinatown of New York City, and has brought it back to its heroic beginnings, so to speak. You also need to know about Tombstone's gang, and this will probably be the biggest crime gang we see, and probably have the most connections to the story that we'll see in this crossover. Starting off, Lonnie Lincoln began his journey in crime when he was exposed to the Deox-3 gas. Everybody knows that already. His skin is basically impenetrable. He has super strength, and his crime empire has expanded. And he's frequently fought Spider-Man, he's frequently fought Deadpool, and Luke Cage, the mayor of New York City, at the time of this crossover. So, a lot of things to keep in mind there. And he also had a lot of encounters with Robbie Robertson, longtime editor of the Daily Bugle. He grew up with Lonnie. They were friends. Lonnie tried to get him to cover up a murder or something like that. I'm not sure on the full story. I just know they had a lot of negative encounters with each other. And I also know that when Randy Robertson and Janice Lincoln got engaged, Tombstone went to Robbie to try to make peace with him, and it went pretty well, I would say. Another thing you need to know about this is Kingpin's son, The Rose. So while all this stuff with Randy and Janice was going on, The Rose was challenging a lot of Tombstone's territory. The Rose, also known as Richard Fisk, it's Kingpin's son. And in The Amazing Spider-Man 31, Tombstone was attacked and seriously injured by the assassin Shotgun. We don't know who hired Shotgun. It's possible it was The Rose and that he wanted to get Tombstone out of the picture so he could forge his own empire and be like his father and take Tombstone's territory. And this is definitely going to take precedence in the Gang War crossover event and be one of the biggest storylines to follow. Next up, we got the Syndicate. This is Janice Lincoln, Tombstone's daughter, aka the Beetle. This is her crime organization. She wanted to follow in her father's footsteps, even though she pretty much had a normal upbringing. She went to law school and is a criminal defense attorney. This is why I wanted to keep She-Hulk in mind, because I think it would be sick if we saw Janice and She-Hulk going at each other in the courtroom during the Gang War crossover. This story is supposed to take the span of 48 hours, I believe, so over 5 months, which is ridiculous. And I could be wrong, it's just that's the deadline the heroes give themselves, I know that. But to see them in the courtroom after one of the crime bosses gets taken down and see Janice trying to defend them and She-Hulk saying, nope, they're wrong, or even if a hero goes against a vigilante law and She-Hulk has to defend Spider-Man or defend Miles Morales, I think that would be sick to see in this, and I really enjoy the political landscape of the Marvel Comics right now, so I would really like to see that go into play. It might not, though, and I highly doubt it, but that's why I said keep She-Hulk in mind, because I think we could get some courtroom drama in here. But anyways, Janice worked for Baron Zemo as an arms dealer. She became the leader of the Sinister Six in 2013, and in an effort to get more women into organized crime, she started the Syndicate. It's her and a bunch of other supervillains. They have been seen a lot in the current Spider-Man run, mainly just getting Janice ready for the wedding and stuff like that, not really any crime. And then we got Kingpin and the Hellfire Club. Now, I think this is going to be I think Kingpin's going to have a major role in the crossover event. I really hope he does. The former mayor of New York City himself married a mutant, Typhoid Mary. They left New York, and then the Owl took over Kingpin's territory. He was defeated, but he's starting to regain his territory a little bit and has expanded his criminal empire more. And then Kingpin's son, The Rose, trying to forge his own destiny and own legacy, where his father once ruled in the city that never sleeps. And now Wilson Fisk has returned to New York after Mary went missing during an attack. We all know about Orcus and the X-Men. And now Kingpin is the White King of the Hellfire Club and an ally to the mutants. I think this could potentially play a role in Gang War. And last but not least, we have Mr. Negative and his inner demons. Anyone who played the video game knows about Mr. Negative and the demons. Really the only difference between Mr. Negative in the video game and comic books is that instead of Norman Osborn and Doc Ock doing experiments on him, it was the Magia and Silvermane Manfredi. So Mr. Negative vowed revenge on the Magia, and with his mind-controlled demons, he actually became the kingpin of crime in Chinatown. Now, he lost that position, but he created some powerful allies such as Hammerhead and Kingpin specifically. Mr. Negative had to retrieve the Tablet of Death for Kingpin so he can resurrect his son, Richard Fisk, aka the Rose. So even the Rose has some debt to Martin Lee in this. And it's also important to remember that Martin Lee is sharing territory in Chinatown with the Five Weapon Society and Lady Yulan, who is a Moon Knight villain, who also has territory in Chinatown. So she could potentially come in this. Maybe Moon Knight comes in this. Who knows? A lot of is open. But I think there are some major connections between all of these crime families and all the stuff that's been happening in the Spider-Man run currently, and I think they're all going to play some type of part in Gang War, and the fact that it spans over 5 months mean they all better come into play at some point, or I'm going to be very upset with you, Zeb Wells. So, now we're going to get into the releases and what you can expect from this crossover. First off is Gang War First Strike, and this will be a release of comic books in November to get you ready and caught up on everything you need to get caught up for the crossover. Now, if you're like me and you don't live near a comic book store at all, and you don't want to pay $7 shipping to have a comic book shipped to your house that's between $3 and $4, then I would suggest skipping out on some of these because I don't think you need to read all of these, or maybe you can find them online. Sometimes you can find places that have them online, or you can do Marvel Unlimited, stuff like that as well. There are other options. I personally like having the hard paper copy, but that's not always an option, unfortunately. But anyways, so Gang War First Strike will kick off this Wednesday with The Amazing Spider-Man 37, followed by The Amazing Spider-Man 38, Miles Morales 12, Amazing Spider-Man Gang War First Strike 1, Spider-Woman number 1, and Luke Cage number 1. Now, I, once again, don't know much about Spider-Woman, don't know much about Luke Cage. I think you could get away with just reading The Amazing Spider-Man Gang War First Strike here. I'm obviously going to read both Amazing Spider-Man issues and Miles Morales because I'm already reading those runs, and I'm really, really enjoying Miles Morales right now, so I'm definitely going to read that one. And then, obviously, Amazing Spider-Man Gang War First Strike. According to the description of this is where we will find out who hired Shotgun to knock off Tombstone, and if Tombstone actually lives or not. We really actually don't know that. He's still super injured and super in the hospital up to this point in the comics. So, we'll see. Spider-Woman number 1, there will be 4 of these in Gang War. I'm not sure if I'm going to read those or not. If she plays a super major role in the story, and I think I need to, I'll go back and I'll read them, and I'll find a way to buy them. And then there's Luke Cage number 1. There will be 4 of those as well. I am curious to read this because I want to know more about the side Luke Cage is going to go on. Obviously, he has this law against vigilantes, but then again, there's a gang war brewing in the city that he's in charge of. So I am very curious to see maybe if he goes back to his hero roots, or if he tries to lay down the law on the heroes and says, let the police do their job. We'll see how that goes. And then we go into December, which will officially begin Gang War with The Amazing Spider-Man 39, a special upsize issue, followed by The Amazing Spider-Man 40, Miles Morales 13 and 14, Daredevil Gang War number 1. There will be 4 of those, and like I said, I really like Elektra as Daredevil, so I will be reading those probably. Spider-Woman 2, Luke Cage Gang War 2, and then The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu Gang War number 1 of 3. And this is a for sure read for me because Shang-Chi is the most interesting character as far as the landscape of Gang Wars go. I made a Spidey News promo about it where Shang-Chi was on the side with the crime bosses in the preview. And I know the 5 Weapon Society is supposed to be heroic now, but I think it's possible they could have Shang-Chi go in the direction of the criminals here, because maybe he thinks he can do more as a white-collar crime boss than he could as a hero, or maybe he'll go back to his hero roots and help the heroes. We don't know. I would be fine either way because Shang-Chi's a really cool character, and I'd be fine seeing him more like his dad or completely against his dad. Obviously, I don't know much about Shang-Chi as far as comic books go, so maybe someone in the comments can tell me whether or not that'd be stupid if he became more of a criminal. And then we go into January, Amazing Spider-Man 41 and 42, Miles Morales 15, Daredevil Gang War 2, Spider-Woman 3, Luke Cage 3, and Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 2. Some important things to note with these covers is it looks like the return of Miss Marvel somehow, Spider-Man fighting with Shang-Chi, and a Dark Beetle looking like she's killing her father Tombstone, so these are going to be interesting storylines to keep watching. Going into February, Amazing Spider-Man 43, Amazing Spider-Man 44, Miles Morales 16, Daredevil 3, Spider-Woman 4, Luke Cage 4, and Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 3. An important thing to note here is that it looks like Shang-Chi is fighting Spider-Man now, which makes Shang-Chi even more interesting to see how he's going to end up and on what side of this gang war he's going to be fighting. And then in March, we wrap it up with Daredevil 4. Some other storylines to keep in mind is Peter and Black Cat's relationship. They broke up pretty recently in the comic art but she's still around. So maybe she comes in, saves Peter's life. Maybe Peter saves her life. She's very, very well connected in the crime world of New York City, once being a crime boss herself. I think she could have a role in this. MJ, now Jackpot, which is her hero name. They said in the previews, would she take a gamble and get involved? And I honestly hope not, because I really just don't like Jackpot. As cool as the powers concept is of her, MJ's just not the right character to have superpowers. Not everyone has to have superpowers, but that's my opinion on it. And then Janice Lincoln. How is she going to respond when she finds out her father, who hired a hitman to kill her father? Is she going to be more on the hero side or stay true to her villain roots, even though Randy wants her to give up her life of crime? I don't know. A lot of interesting storylines to keep up with here, and we'll find out soon enough. This could be Zeb Wells' last chance to impress Spidey fans. Like I said, I'm going to read the comics no matter what because I love the character and I'm indifferent about the current run. If you hate Zeb Wells, though, let me know if you're excited for Gang War or if you've had enough. Let me know if you're going to read it and what you expect from it. I expect good things. My expectations are going in pretty high, so I'll probably end up being disappointed. But we'll see. And I'll see you guys in the next one.